This video illustrates how to use the patent vein of Marshall to cannulate the CS from the right side. And so we were unable to find the coronary sinus. So we took the standard vein selector and interrogated the area at the sternoclavicular junction with puffs of contrast, looking for the vein of Marshall. And you can see we found the vein of Marshall, which led down into the coronary sinus. Now, despite knowing where the coronary sinus was and even having a wire coming out of the coronary sinus, I was unable to get a catheter into the coronary sinus. So we got the second access here and put a snare catheter into the right atrium, and then attempted to advance the wire into the open snare. What sometimes is confusing here is that it can be very difficult to tell whether this wire is either in the right atrium or the left atrium. But when we saw the wire go up into the superior vena cava, we were sure that it was in the right atrium, able to successfully snare it, and then using the snare, we're able to put traction on the snare and advance the sheath into the coronary sinus. And here we have now the coronary sinus cannulated. You can see the tip of the sheath here. This is the snare coming down the persistent vein of Marshall, and this is where the wire is snared. So we drag into the coronary sinus, but we find that we're really not completely in the coronary sinus. Where the tip of the catheter is actually headed up the vein of Marshall, and the CS is down below here. So we put an Amplatz wire up into the CS with the idea that we were going to withdraw the sheath so that we could find the CS down here and then slip over, but we didn't want to drop out of the CS. So once we got down here, we were able to put a vertebral shaped vein selector into the body of the CS and then switch over to cannulating the true CS. And then from here, it was relatively easy to use the vertebral vein selector to advance a wire, or to advance into this lateral wall target vein, while the coronary sinus catheter, the sheath, is stabilized with this Amplatz wire. Remember, it's very important that this is a Cook Amplatz wire, because the other Amplatz wires with J-tips have a long floppy section. So this wouldn't, if this was for example, a Boston Amplatz wire, all of this would be floppy and provide no support. So it needs to be a Cook. So from here, we're advancing. Here's the vein selector, the subselector. Take a picture just to see if there's any other readily available options in case we have trouble here in terms of phrenic pacing or high thresholds, and then we're able to advance the quadrupolar lead into the lateral wall target vein. All the while, the sheath is stabilized with this wire now in the body of the coronary sinus. Thank you for your attention, and I hope this is helpful. It can be fun when you find a patent vein of Marshall and implant down the vein of Marshall, or in this case, use the vein of Marshall to locate and cannulate the CS.